Hi, welcome to Be a Stand-Up Leader. I'm Jared Whitman with Whitman Media, and I'm here with John Russell with the Business Source. And we are going through John's book, Be a Stand-Up Leader. A lot of really good information, a lot of really good refresher type information. I read it, and so we're going down chapter by chapter, talking about each of the subject matters, and also we're also going to have people who are in that field come in. Guest speak, guest interviews, kind of do a deep dive on what it's like from that side. We can only do stories and take experiences from our paths, and John has a lot more experiences than I do because he's a little bit older. But
64.
I wasn't going to throw age out there, but so we can only take experiences from our paths, but then to talk to someone in the field that is in the weeds, in the muck, that is super beneficial, and I think it'd be beneficial for you, the audience. So on this episode of Be a Stand-Up Leader, we're going to talk about ad agencies.
Right.
And we both have experiences with ad agencies. But John, why don't you start us off, and why don't you talk a little bit about what your experiences are with ad agencies?
Well, I'm just going to touch a little bit on what I wrote in the book, which is essentially, I've seen different ad agencies create different outcomes.
Right.
For small, medium, and large-sized businesses. I experienced an ad agency who was working with a local furniture store, and somehow the ad agency convinced the business owner to give the ad agency a very large budget, most of which they didn't have.
Gotcha.
So the premise was, in the world of advertising, it's called banking on the come. We're going to bank on the fact that new customers are going to come to the business and buy things. So everything's going to come later, and that's how you're going to make your money back on whatever amount of money you're spending on that campaign. Well, unfortunately for that furniture store, it failed.
Right. And that's unfortunate. Sounds like
they went out of business.
Sounds like some Enron accounting type stuff.
It was a bad situation because the agency talked them into doing this big campaign. It didn't work. It failed.
Yeah.
And they couldn't pay for it, and they ended up going bankrupt.
That is unfortunate.
Not the best scenario. So my perspective is, if you're smart enough to understand it all, and you have a budget, and you can do it yourself, then go for it. A lot of businesses have an in-house marketing person like yourself.
Yeah.
You've done that.
Yep.
And I've done that. And then there's other companies and businesses that actually just want to hire an ad agency to come in from the outside and handle it all. So the question is, can you outsource your marketing to a third party, an ad agency, successfully? Or is it better to have a marketing director on staff in-house where you've got a little bit more control over the situation? So outside marketing consultants and ad agencies offer an independent view on strategic moves that are going to elevate your business and create the opportunities that you need in terms of increased revenue, more sales, more happy customers right on down the line. So in preparing for our meeting today, I spent some time writing down the pros and cons of having an advertising agency.
Yeah, do you want to go through that list, and then we can kind of talk?
First, I just want to get your opinion on your experience as an in-house marketing director. You've done that.
Yeah, what a great...
You handled a pretty big budget.
Yeah, it was 7-figure budget. That was a ton of fun. I loved that job just because there's a lot to it. But yeah, we would do as much as we could in-house. And I loved doing it in-house because we had the time factor. We could easily develop a campaign within a couple days. We didn't have to wait for the emails back and forth, phone call, and then maybe an email, and then, okay, we'll get to you in a week or two.
Right.
So I wanted to start next week. So, we brought as much as we could in-house, but then I also relied on certain agencies for specific information because the thing with marketing and everything that goes into it, it's a beast. And it's, in my experience, difficult to be good at all these different capacities.
You can't be good at everything
that go into it. So relying on an outside agency to kind of take care of, the steering of the cart, but then I, as the inside person, would monitor what they're doing, making sure that they're staying accountable, making sure everything within our campaign, everything within our budget, everything was on a smooth track.
You're the key point man.
Yeah,
inside the business.
The gatekeeper or the key master.
One or the other.
Ghostbuster reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I loved being that source of content, source of contact, that contact source, and working with all the different components, and then, understanding what that agency had available for marketing to see if, okay, could we lean on them a little bit more, or maybe we want to lean back a little bit more. Like we had a agency take care of our blog posts.
Okay.
And
social media.
yeah, social media type stuff. And eventually it was just like, it came to a point where, okay, we don't like what you're doing. We have an in-house person. We're just gonna take this off your plate. We'll just do it. So it was
so you didn't need the outside help then.
for the social media, yeah, because I had more control
you brought
over
that in-house.
Correct.
Didn't have to go back and forth.
Correct. Yeah, we just took care of that in-house. We still utilized that agency for our website, for LSA,
so they had
Google.
Multiple disciplines that they were able to bring forward.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about the different skills that are required to develop a marketing plan. Sometimes, Jared, you've got extensive background in video.
Yeah.
So, you don't need to necessarily farm that out unless you're looking for some advanced editing.
Right. Or like a 4K camera.
Right.
I don't shoot on 4K, but
different equipment.
Yeah, different equipment, different styles.
So another thing that business owners are going to encounter is with their website, the development side, the coding part, the back end of the website. Now, a lot of website platforms today, like WordPress, are set up so that the owner of the business can manage the content themselves.
Yeah, it's a lot of drag and drop type of.
It's got a content management system that's fairly easy to use. We like to teach people how to use that. But what happens is if you're not good at that, then you're going to have to call your webmaster every time you want to make a change. And in my experience, sometimes that can be really expensive. Sometimes you can't get a hold of them, and it's not as timely. There's other things like television production, radio creative, streaming services. How do you get your commercials on YouTube? How do you get them on Hulu? How do you get them on Amazon or whatever channel you're on? There's dozens of them. So there's an area of expertise and a discipline for each element of your marketing plan. Let's just come back to this concept of, do you need an ad agency? And let's talk about the pros and cons.
Yeah.
I jotted down about a dozen pros and a dozen cons. I'm just going to work through them a little bit. Jared and I are going to kind of bat it around a little bit. One thing that some advertising agencies bring to the table is a lot of experience.
Right.
Now, it's usually the principal or one of the leaders in the ad agency that has the experience from wherever they came from. But oftentimes there's other people on the ad agency team that may be the client liaison, but they don't have that level of experience.
Right.
So you could go into a meeting and somebody from the agency could come to the meeting and you could have a conversation with them, and they're just going to have to take it back to the agency.
Right.
And have a conversation with the principals because they're not experienced enough to know what to do.
Or have the answers to the questions.
Have the answers to the tough questions.
One of the things that I did in my job was asked the hard questions to get the information that I looked at everything from a high perspective.
Right.
And try to get down and be devil's advocate because I wanted to make sure that that agency could talk the talk as well as walk the walk.
Right.
So do my due diligence.
Right. So they have to have enough experience and enough of a broad perspective so that depending upon what you're using the ad agency for, some ad agencies are full service and they do everything.
Right.
Other ad agencies specialize in a certain area or they only do certain things. So it kind of depends on what their background is as it relates to what their experience is. One thing that I think ad agencies do really well is the creative part.
I agree with you.
You can tell when you watch television or when you're online or when you see a web ad pop up on your browser, when you're scrolling on your social media, you can tell if that ad has been thought through creatively. You can almost tell if it's been developed by a professional.
Right.
And so the creative aspect of tying in the creative with the brand, you talk about brand pillars.
Yeah.
And you talk about telling the story of a company. So where do you begin? I'm going to ask that question.
I mean, you want to understand what your company's brand is.
Purpose.
And purpose, core
competency.
Core values.
Core values.
Who is the customer? How do you talk? How does the brand, what's the brand's tone? What is the brand's character? Does the brand have a character? All of that stuff kind of goes into your company and is like the base.
The style guide, we call it.
Well, yeah, style guide. That's the base of how you market and how you can present and how you can communicate to an ad agency.
So part of it is what do you want your customers to know? What do you want your prospects to know? And understanding that it's a long game and that
yes,
there is no really immediate type result when it comes to running a particular ad schedule. You have to determine what do you want your customer to know over the course of time and how are you going to tell your story? How's it going to unfold?
That's a great, you just said how are you going to tell a story, and that's the best way to connect with an audience, by telling a story. Every business has a story.
Right.
And if you're an entrepreneur and you've built your business up, what a great story that is. Lean into that and tell that story and make those connections. But you're right.
Some businesses have a hard time telling the story.
That's why you hire someone like myself who can help tell the story.
Video guy.
Yeah, video guy, creative. But yeah, it's just like you have to have an understanding so that you can relate that to the ad agency person, and they can relate that in the content that they're gonna post.
So in order for the relationship between the business owner and the marketing person, whether it be an in-house marketing person or an advertising agency who's been brought in from the outside, there has to be a trust component.
Yes.
Because you're going to ask questions that maybe they haven't been asked about recently, or you're going to ask them to tell some stories that they haven't thought of before. So this process of uncovery or discovery, where you're sitting down with the business owner, whether you're an inside consultant or an outside agency, it's going to take a little time to bring enough conversation to the table to get that story to be told so that we can craft it.
Yes.
And put it into a format and a deliverable that the audience is going to say, wow, that's my kind of business. Those people share the same values that I do.
Yeah.
Those people want to treat me the way I want to be treated. It's an important connection there. There's a physical connection, there's an emotional connection, it can be a spiritual connection. But the creative part of the advertising business, I think ad agencies do extremely well.
They can do extremely well.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
We've all seen the flops out there.
Yes,
and
unfortunately.
even in the Super Bowl, you can see some commercials are like, they spent $7 million on that, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
30 seconds of, I'm sorry, it didn't go anywhere.
Right, yeah.
And, be careful with how you spend your money in that regard.
Yes.
Something related to this is new ideas. I think advertising agencies are great at bringing new ideas to the table.
I would agree to that, as well as if you have an in-house person and you're working as a team. There's the ideas are out there no matter what. Right. It's whether it's complementary to your brand or not complementary to
Right.
your brand.
So there's a converse to that, though. As I said, new ideas, I'm thinking, a lot of ad agencies, in my experience, they've been brought in to do something new. So a great business who's had a great campaign and had a great brand all of a sudden has a new ad agency and like, woohoo, we're gonna start something new, and they come up with this new idea like, new Coke, was that it?
Yeah, new Coke.
Why would you even think about doing that? There are some times when a new idea is a dumb idea.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you shouldn't refresh your messaging periodically,
Right.
but I wouldn't say that you should take a successful company and have an agency come in and try to rewrite the rules.
Right, yeah.
And say, oh, well, we've got this great new idea. You're going to love it. And it's like, well, maybe and maybe not.
Right.
So new ideas, it's a double-edged sword. But in fact, getting an outside perspective
That's
from
important.
somebody who specializes in bringing new ideas to the table can sometimes unlock something. It's kind of like a brainstorming session.
Yeah.
You might find a great idea that's in alignment with what you're doing,
Yep.
in alignment with your values, in alignment with the current status of your business. But be careful not to try to do something that's so new
Right,
that
yeah.
you alienate people in your campaign. And we've all heard stories like that.
I also like, this is probably a little tangent here, but like if it's a certain month of the year and all these companies all of a sudden start marketing towards a certain
Right?
audience group,
Wave.
right, just to capitalize on that time, if that is not on your brand's that's not part of your brand's persona, to get into like a political aspect type of messaging or religious type messaging, don't curses, what's the word, shit, don't overstep because or someone's pushing that because it's the norm.
Don't try to be a follower.
Yeah. Don't blindly follow.
Right.
Don't
Just because somebody else is doing it doesn't mean it's a good idea for you.
Yeah, exactly. So an ad agency, they work for you. That's
it.
That's the bottom line. They work for you.
Yeah. Sometimes agencies get a little controlling.
Yeah, maybe
they wanna take
aggressive too. Yeah.
So new ideas are good. Agencies can provide them sometimes. Agencies can provide time savings for business owners.
That I agree with 100%.
Because business owners, how'd you put it before? Work on your business
instead of in your business.
Instead of in your business. Yeah, that's a pretty common quote that is true. So
Yeah, it's at some point.
If you're not able to understand the complexities of marketing and advertising and how it relates to sales and your customers, bring in a professional. Either hire a full-time marketing person to be your director of marketing for your company in-house, or find an advertising consultant or an advertising agency who knows enough about the market that you're in and who can become a trusted advisor, because you're really going to be working hand in hand, and it's a strong relationship.
To piggyback off of that, I don't think a business owner should put full trust, 100%, that you have to have trust when you're working with another person, but you have to do your due diligence as a business owner to understand every component that's going on, and then make sure that you're doing the checks. Now, as an in-house person, we were working with a PPC company, a company that did our PPC ads.
Yeah.
So my due diligence was looking through all 150 ads and making sure that the landing pages connected up with the ad. And I found a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of clickbait type stuff that is not on the character of the business.
No.
And that's not something we want even the small detail, like
Right.
$25 off, and then it goes into
Right.
a different
The
trade.
business owner trusted you enough,
Yeah,
so you took care of it.
correct.
I'm lucky because the clients that I work with, we have a 100% trust relationship,
Yeah,
and they just trust me to take care of it. And then I keep them in the loop. I brief them on things. I'm always being proactive on the front end. I'm being proactive during the process, whatever that project is, and then we're following it up because we're not just going to do something and let it sit.
correct. Yeah,
That's the benefit of having somebody who you trust, whether it's an inside person or an outside person. It's essential.
and I will say communication is a key factor. Communication front end,
No
middle,
question.
follow up.
And it can be a real stumbling block.
Yes, yes, it
If
can
you
be.
don't have access to the people you need to get access to,
Right.
we live in kind of a period of time now where things have to happen pretty quickly.
Yep.
And so when I'm making decisions and I need to get a hold of somebody and I pick up the phone and I want them to answer. And I've made decisions in the past about whether or not I'm going to work with somebody on whether or not they answer the phone when I call. It's as simple as that. If you're not going to pick up the phone and I need help or I have a question or I'm at a stop point and I need information to proceed and you're the gatekeeper on that, if I can't get a hold of you, you're probably not going to be around very long.
Right.
I'm just saying it like it is.
Yeah.
You got to keep it on top. So time savings for business owners, it's a big deal. You save the business owner a lot of time by having a competent, trusted marketing professional, either inside your team or on an ad agency.
Yeah.
If they rise up to that level. Here's another pro about ad agencies. They have access to resources.
A lot of resources.
Anything you need. One of the things that I prided myself on, now I don't want to be perceived as an advertising agency because I've worked with so many. I didn't like that business model.
Right.
I want to be perceived as a marketing professional who owns a marketing firm that also does advertising. But advertising is just one little piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
There's sales, there's website work, there's training for your staff, there's internal communications, there's collateral, there's graphic design, there's all these different elements, photography, video, it goes on and on. So you have to have access to those resources, and I don't think any one single business owner that I know of has a full suite of marketing and advertising resources at their fingertips. I don't know many business owners that have their own web developer.
Right.
I don't know many business owners who have a full-time graphic design artist,
I would
creative director,
I would say probably like
videographer.
if you're a $100 million company or
Right.
multi-million,
That's
100. Yeah, it's a huge scale. You're gonna have that, but
like Procter and Gamble.
right. But a small to medium-sized business probably is not gonna have
No,
that.
and one of the reasons we specialize in working with small and medium-sized companies is because we can be on the ground floor with you, and you don't have to worry about all those layers that can happen with a bigger agency or a bigger company. But access to resources. Generally speaking, ad agencies know enough people. They have a team of videographers that they could call up at any given moment. Sometimes they
Right,
have
yeah.
several.
Yep.
Sometimes they may need to bring in several. Other times they need to bring in somebody on the website. They need to bring in somebody to redo the brochures. They need to. How about a writer? How many businesses have writers on staff? None that I know of.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's a perspective there in terms of agencies give you a larger scope in terms of access to resources, and you want to find out what their capabilities are
Yep.
because you're going to need to try to align as many of these marketing perspectives as possible to smooth out your whole process and have a campaign that's got longevity.
Correct. Yeah. And to bring it back to something that you said before is it's a long game.
Right.
It's a long-term game, and anything that you can do to optimize your marketing budget to get the most spend out of it, the most connectivity between where you're advertising, what you're advertising, and who you're advertising to. That's important, and to understand what an agency brings to the table, all the different components, and then you kind of pick and choose. Like, oh, I think that would work here. That could work here, and then you kind of bring it all together. Yeah. That's
So something that's similar, another pro in terms of ad agencies is a fresh perspective.
yes.
Now, what I mean by that is not necessarily new ideas, but what I mean by that is somebody who has more of a world vision about the category, about your particular industry. Sometimes when we're in our own business, I wouldn't call it tunnel vision, but
yeah.
you become immersed in your own business, and it's hard to see what's going on outside of that.
Yep.
And it helps to bring in somebody from the outside.
Yeah, and I think that, if you look at different industries, and this is something that I did, I wouldn't just look at home service industries, HVAC companies. I would look at all these different companies and what they're doing for advertising, because at the end of the day, we're both talking to the same types of people.
Homeowners?
Yeah, homeowners. So if I'm looking at a different industry and they're running a campaign that is great, then, well, what can I do to pull from that campaign, or what kind of ideas can I get from a campaign like that, and can it apply to what I'm trying to do here?
They may have experienced other things.
So getting an outside perspective is always going to be beneficial to kind of like help you kind of get a little bit further along.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next point in terms of the pros related to ad agencies is less bias. And bias is a difficult subject because it's so broad and diverse. But the real simplest way that I can explain this is when you work for a company, you're inside that business. Everything you do, all that you think about generally comes from that perspective. That's your bias. So when somebody comes in from the outside with a different viewpoint or a fresh idea or a new perspective, sometimes it's hard to let that idea in because of bias that exists inside the business. So an ad agency could potentially be less biased towards a potentially great idea.
Yeah.
And I'll almost use the word discriminatory.
Okay.
Don't discriminate against other ideas because you work inside that factory, or you work inside that operation, or you work inside that business, and your thinking comes from that point of view.
Right.
Another thing that we talk about, that we like about ad agencies, is there's more objectivity with an outside perspective. It's an independent view.
Right.
It's similar to having less bias. I'm not tainted by any knowledge that I have about the business past, or what the situation is. Let's take a fresh look at it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Ability to scale up or down. With resources, if somebody called you tomorrow and said, I've got a big event, I'm going to need 5 or 6 cameras, I'm going to need 6 or 7 cameramen, I need an audio engineer, I need a sound mixer, I need lights, you're going to scale up.
Yep.
You make a few phone calls.
Pretty quickly.
Right. And so now it's like, boom. Companies don't have that. They don't have the ability to scale up when they need to scale up for an event, or for a special project, or a special ad campaign. Same goes for scaling down.
Yep.
Sometimes you don't need a whole production company. That was one of the things I found when I started running my own marketing company, was a lot of the videographers, they'd show up and they'd have all this expensive gear, have lights and this and that, and I'm like, you don't need all that. You just need a camera and a microphone and somebody who knows how to edit.
Right.
I mean, let's scale it down. So I want video to be simple. I want it to be easy. I want it to be quick. I want it to be effective.
And it can be all those things. And that, I think there's just a stigma of overwhelm when it comes to video as a tool or tactic, that it has to be all those things. Like a guy with a big ass truck pulling up with a bunch of equipment, that's overwhelming right there.
Right. This
But
isn't a movie shoot.
exactly. So we're coming in with we have 4 lights on this set, two background lights, 2 big lights,
Nice and simple.
a camera, and then two
Beautiful.
lav mics. So it's simple, it's easy, and it works for what we're doing, and that's the biggest thing. Do you have what you need in order to make it work?
Right.
And that it's very easy.
So the ability to scale up or down. Probably going to need to have an outside consultant, video consultant, if we're talking video. Outside web consultant, if we're talking web. Whatever it is. You may not be able to scale up or down on your own. A fast turnaround time is a big thing that I think ad agencies and some marketing firms can do.
I think, what do you consider a fast turnaround time?
Well, I'll give you an example. I don't want to be perceived as an ad agency because I have a bias against ad agencies. Not totally negative, but I have opinions about it. But since I run my own marketing company, my own marketing firm, when we do website work, we'd go into a client meeting. This is no joke. I would go in with my creative director, graphic artist, Crazy Matt. Maybe someday I'll introduce him on the show, but he's outside the box. And we would sit inside the meeting, and between him and me, he would sketch the design while we were in the meeting.
Okay. Yeah.
In real time.
Yeah.
So we would walk out of that meeting. This would be like the second meeting with a new website client. First meeting was, hey, we'll get to know you. Here's the contract. Everybody's good. We're going forward. Second meeting is, all right, let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's start talking about the content. Let's start talking about what is this design going to look like? What needs to be in the layout? So we would sit down and we would go back after the meeting, and Matt would draw the homepage design and the back page design, because they kind of work together, but they're different. And he would have it in his computer and done before the next morning at 7 o'clock.
That's pretty. That's a quick.
No kidding.
It's a quick turnaround
So
time.
we'd go into a meeting. That night we would put together the game plan. We'd have it all done. We would send the finished homepage design to the client at 8 o'clock the next morning.
I would say that's pretty damn good.
We prided ourselves on not only being of super high quality.
Yeah.
Our approval rate is like 99%. We've really never had a kickback. We had a couple tweaks, a little bit this, a little bit that.
Yeah.
The client will go, how'd you do that? We worked on it overnight.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're the most important project that we got going right now. And
Yep.
we treat all our clients like that.
Yep.
And they go, that's unbelievable. Let's go. Let's launch the site. So we'd go right to the development side. That's a fast turnaround.
I would say that that situation and your company is specific to you, because I've run into ad agencies or agencies that will say, okay, we can get that done in 2 weeks.
See, that's an ad agency, marketing firm. Ad agencies drag their feet.
Yeah.
Billable hours.
Well, and I think we'll get through this in the cons, is that you're focused on that customer. Right then and there.
Smarter, better, faster.
Agencies could be working with a couple, 10 clients, could be working with 20, 30, 50 clients. So
you're not the most important cog in that wheel.
Correct. Yeah.
Even though they'd like you to think that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that doesn't work that way.
No.
So fast turnaround time. Another thing that we like to do is I can put a campaign up on radio in 24 hours.
Right, yeah. I think
start to finish.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits of having a guy like yourself or an in-house person that's kind of dedicated to that, because you can do that very quick turnaround time.
I don't need multiple meetings to know what needs to happen.
Exactly. You know what needs to be done. Right. You get it done. And then when the owner has a question,
swing through the approval process.
Got it done.
Revisions,
Yep.
additions. The other thing that fast turnaround time on, sometimes you can turn video around quickly.
Oh yeah.
Right, you could turn video around in a day or two.
Yeah, I look back at the past campaigns that we've done, and we've come up with 15, 30-second ads within a week's time. But that is like from start to finish. Okay, this is what we're doing. Here's the writing, here's the filming, here's the recording, here's the editing.
Depends on the situation.
There's definitely a lot of variables that go into it,
Right.
but you can do that very quickly if you have someone in-house to be able to take care of that.
Right. The other thing that I kind of like about ad agencies is the focus that they bring to the table. Sometimes when you bring in somebody from the outside, there is going to be a special level of attention given to that client, that business owner during that time period. And sometimes if you've got somebody in-house, they may or may not be focused on what you need to be focused on. How quickly can they adapt?
Right.
Is about what it comes down to.
Yep.
Advertising agencies and marketing firms can bring data and analytics to the conversation for digital that help you make better decisions.
I think data is, and the analytics part is a huge component because the data does not lie. And if you have a history of spreadsheets or data, if you see a discrepancy, then you can kind of look at, okay, well, what happened here last year, or the last 2 or 3 years?
Right.
Why is it different? And then you kind of work your way backwards from poor data or incorrect or not obscure, but
Aberrations.
Yeah.
Things that aren't right.
Correct. Yeah. What just aberrations?
Yeah, it's a word.
Okay.
So, website analytics is important too, and being able to use that information to make good decisions.
Yeah.
What it amounts to. Ongoing support and consistency. I think a good outside marketing firm or an ad agency who really gives you the service and attention that you deserve will provide that support and consistency so that you don't have to worry as a business owner whether or not they're going to be available when you need them, and they're going to be there all the time.
I would, and then just to do devil's advocate here, is I think a business owner should do the due diligence, do some research, make sure you're looking at the reviews, good and bad, before you move forward with an ad agency, just to make sure that all the ducks are in a row.
Yeah, the other thing that I'd do is I'd talk to clients, if you can.
Yeah.
And I would also talk to clients that no longer work with the agency.
Yes.
Why did they part company?
Yeah. What do they like?
Nobody wants to look behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's necessary.
You have to check on Mr. Oz and make sure that it's not just a
Smoke.
Yeah, smoke. It's an actual person doing the actual stuff.
Yeah, it's not magic. So the other thing that I think is good that a lot of businesses could take advantage of is the research.
Oh yeah, ton of research.
It doesn't usually occur, but as marketers, it's nice to be able to find out what are your customers thinking.
Yep.
And it's astonishing to me, we were talking about this before, that not a lot of business owners want to take the time to interview their customers to find out what they think.
Yeah.
And I just find that astonishing.
One thing I did at my last job is we implemented a video customer testimonial review. So we'd go into a customer's home, set up, interview, look at key components of all the processes, and then I'd be there. So I'd ask the question, what do you like about what we're doing? What do you not like about what we're doing? I would get that feedback directly from the client. One of our customers said, "Hey, I like the newsletter that you're sending out, but I don't really celebrate
some
holidays, right?" So I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So instead of doing a holiday themed newsletter, we did a season themed newsletter.
Seasonal.
Correct, yeah, which is just
4 quarters.
Just kind of altering the
Summer, winter, spring, and fall.
Yeah, instead of focusing on the holidays specifically, it was more like, okay, what's a winter season? So we're going to do winter stuff. That was valuable feedback that I never would have gotten if I wasn't there interviewing the customer and having a candid conversation. I mean, she really liked everything that we were doing except for that.
If there's one thing that I really want to do, I've never told you this, Jared, I would love to find a company that wants to hire us to go out and talk to their customers openly, candidly, and get honest feedback from people who are buying from you about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And that's stuff that you want to know, because
why not?
If you know the bad and the ugly, even the good, then you're able to make the necessary diversions in how you operate your business in order to level up in how you're bringing your brand further along with the customer, how you're building that relationship growth with the customer and your brand. I think the bad and the ugly, as well as the good,
that's the money.
It's valuable information that you have to know. Don't let fear, block the way.
No, and honestly, if a customer says you should do more of this and less of that, do it. And take the advice of the people who are paying you, the customers,
Yep.
on how to be a slightly better company. That's so simple. It just is amazing to me. Let's get into some of the cons. We're talking about the pros and cons of ad agencies, and we just kind of touched on a bunch of the different pros. And as hard as it is for me, because I don't really like to speak in negative terms, we need to review the cons of having an advertising agency as part of your business plan.
I think it's super important to talk about the negatives of ad agencies.
Yeah, and remember, marketing firm, not an ad agency. Okay, and there's a reason for that. I don't want to be perceived as an ad agency because that's not my business model. My business model is helping small and medium-sized business owners increase sales by improved employee performance, better advertising, better websites, better communications between the company and the customer, and better relationships overall. And I don't think advertising agencies really have that perspective. I don't think they have that in their heart. So let's talk about the cons of advertising agencies. It's expensive.
Oh, it's very expensive.
And it's astonishing to me. I get it. They have a big staff, and there's a lot of big offices, and there's a lot of big leather chairs, and there's a lot of hubris.
That's a great word right there.
Another good word.
Hubris.
I think that means they're full of it. So it's expensive. But, when you hire an agency, you're either going to hire them on retainer, you're going to hire them on a project basis. Their production costs are high because they bring in expensive people. They're not interested necessarily in saving you money. They're really more interested in making money.
Right.
Am I right about that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's just honest, straight up.
Yeah.
So, the other thing about ad agencies is there's usually a lot of experience at the principal level and maybe 2 or 3 different leaders in the organization. But as you drill down into the staff at ad agencies, a lot of those people don't have any experience.
Right.
And so they may be in charge of your account, but they don't know much. So, it's hard to work with somebody who doesn't have the background and experience and the knowledge that's necessary to move your business forward.
I will say, looking back at my experience with ad agencies, is I always had a really good liaison that would understand my standpoint as the in-house person at the company,
right,
and what we were trying to achieve, what we wanted to do, and stay on top of communications, staying on top of where the projects are, and then just being honest about when they messed up, and that was super valuable. So.
So, do they have experience in digital? Do they have experience in radio? Do they have experience in TV? Do they have experience in streaming channels? Do they have experience in YouTube TV, video, web development, web design, graphic design, collateral development? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. A lot of times they're going to outsource it, and the question then becomes, who are they outsourcing it to? I'll give you an example. I have a creative director who I work with. He's also an expert at Adobe Illustrator, and he is one of the most talented artists I've ever met in my life. Now, he's not my employee because I don't need him on my payroll all the time.
Right.
Agencies can't afford to keep somebody with that level of talent on their team unless they're paying big bucks. And that means they have to overcharge you as the business owner, and I'm not a big fan of that.
Yep.
So, they're expensive. That's the bottom line.
I would also be, and I'm not sure if this is on your cons list, but I would be hesitant about putting all my eggs in one basket, especially when it comes to an agency. Yeah. There's agencies that are specific to certain things like Google Ads and LSA, which is Google Local Service Ads, or website, that kind of digital aspect. That makes sense, but then if they also do OTT, if they do direct mail, if they do mass media, if they do radio, if they do all these things, I'm very hesitant about putting all my eggs in one basket, because if that relationship goes sour, then you're kind of stuck with broken eggs, a dozen broken eggs, or all that.
Right. Pick and choose your partners.
Yes.
So if I was to have a client call me up tomorrow and say, hey, I've got a new video project, Jared and I would team up on that because I trust Jared, and Jared knows what's at stake. One of the things that I've always enjoyed about the business source model is working with very select, hand-picked experts who are masters of their craft, who have their own business, means that they have a vested interest in the project. They have a vested interest in the campaign. Because if it doesn't go good, it's their reputation that's going to take a hit.
I agree 100%.
So, another con about ad agencies. Is your business the most important thing to that agency in the moment? A lot of ad agencies have a lot of clients.
Yeah.
The bigger they are, the more they charge, the less attention you might be getting.
Mm-hmm.
And priority. Communication challenges. You were touching on that a little earlier about the going between back and forth.
Yep.
Did you ever experience problems with that?
Oh my God, yeah. We worked with this company to do Facebook advertising. They put out the wrong types of ads. They were promoting 0% financing. We didn't offer that.
Right.
So it's like trying to communicate with them, which didn't go over very well. And then here's what they said: hey, we're partners in this. I'm like, no, I pay you. I'm paying you.
You work for me.
Yeah, you work for me. So I've experienced both the bad and the good when it comes to that. But communication is super key. Right. If I have an issue with my website and we're running a big campaign and the website's not working, or we lost the page where we just spent this in the middle of a campaign, right, and you don't answer my phone call, well then you're gonna get a stern message. It's gonna be a hard conversation.
So I had an experience today with one of my clients where I've been working with them. They're an outsourced ad agency that works for a national product manufacturing company, and as part of our relationship with the brand, we had to sign up for their social media service. We didn't have to, we chose to. So they've been trying to get hooked up to our Facebook account for about a week, and it was back and forth, problem. Couldn't get in. Nobody to talk to at Facebook. One of the principals on the other side said, well, I know somebody at Facebook, I'll call them, we'll get it sorted out. That was a week and a half ago. So far, nothing has happened. And so today, Monday, I show up. What's up with this campaign? we're paying for it and it ain't happening.
Right.
So my email to the people was, what's the status? Where are we at? I swear to God, I hooked you guys up a week and a half ago, and for some reason, there's a technical difficulty now. Social media and getting hooked up and giving people access.
It's a lot of hoops, lots of hoops.
It ain't easy. So, sometimes it's really smooth and easy, but in this case, it's not. So,
I think, to go back, it's also down to communication is a huge aspect. Not only...
Why did I have to reach out to him? Why didn't he call me?
Correct, yeah. Well, why not do a check-in or even an email?
Like,
hey, this is where we're at.
Yeah.
This is what the issues are. This is what we're running into.
Right.
Communication is key.
That's exactly right.
That's important.
Exactly right. So communication challenges. Experience in your industry. Now, some ad agencies specialize in certain things. Like I know there's ad agencies that specialize in food and beverage products.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are ad agencies that specialize in food photography. I know that there are ad agencies that specialize in home services businesses. And that's great, but what if you want to hire an ad agency and they don't have any experience in your field?
Well,
Are you going to teach them?
Correct, yeah.
Now you're going to take all the time that's necessary to bring them up to speed. Okay, so it's a double-edged sword too, because as a marketing consultant, the owner of a marketing company, the owner of a video production company, we're really good at getting to the root of the matter and not having to be so super focused in one category that you can't operate in other categories.
Right.
I pride myself on being able to apply the principles of advertising, the principles of marketing, the principles of good storytelling using video, and I can work with any company somewhat chameleon-like.
Yeah.
Because I don't need to be a specialist in hamburgers to do a great video for a company who's selling lawn care. It's a totally different thing, but the customers all need the same approach. What are we doing to engage with the audience? What are we doing to build your audience? What are we doing to build the frequency and repetition with the right creative so that when a triggering event occurs, they're like, wow, I'm going with company X because I've heard a lot about them and they seem to be a lot like me.
Great group of words there. Triggering event. And I think that goes back to, proactive versus reactive, making sure that your brand is in front of the customer as much as possible.
Yeah, consistency.
Customers see 10,000 advertisements a day. What is a brand doing to step up and beyond? Stay in front of a customer.
This is a good time to discuss this. We'll talk about it again because it's so important. Nobody buys anything until a triggering event occurs.
Yes.
When your car breaks, you're going to need a repair.
Mm-hmm.
When let's just say you got a big lawn to mow and your lawnmower breaks, you're going to buy a new lawnmower. But until it breaks, you can advertise till you're blue in the face and nothing happens.
Right.
That's the reason why it has to be sustainable. That's the reason why it's the long game. You have to be able to advertise enough consistently without breaking the bank.
Right.
Nobody can afford to be everywhere all the time and blah, 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 and here's my ad 1,000 times. So you have to be careful about how you spend your money.
Optimizing the budget and then optimizing the campaign opportunities that you have, to differentiate yourself and your messaging in the market without breaking the bank.
How do you be consistent enough without overspending?
Planning.
Strategy.
Yeah.
We're working with people who know what they're doing.
Yeah. Whether that's an in-house person,
right,
the business source like yourself, or
marketing
firm, or
different choices for different people.
Yep.
And there's nothing against ad agencies.
Right.
But be careful.
Yeah.
And there's other options.
Yes.
And if you're going to do an ad agency, make sure you vet them correctly.
You have to vet. Oh my gosh.
We talked about that. Go into
just like we worked with, the owners of this company came by and just like, we're gonna move forward with this, and I started doing my due diligence and research, and like, this does not look like a reputable company. I don't think we should move forward with it. We moved forward anyway. 3 weeks later, I'm firing the company because they just cannot stay on top of it. You have to do some research. You have to vet companies. Look at the good reviews, but also look at the bad reviews. I mean, that really tells a little bit about what customers don't like about that company. And then look at how they reply to those bad reviews. What is the character of that company? Are they just throwing out excuses after excuses or talking back? That how you show up online really matters for the next person that's doing research on your company. So that negative review reply, that negative employee reply,
no room for that, is there?
there is no room for that.
But it could happen.
There's no room for being petty and immature in replies online. I've seen it, and it's difficult. You have to, you have to. That's why you hire that out for an agency to take care of that.
Wow. So we're talking about the learning curve.
Yeah.
Let's talk about dependency.
Okay.
Dependency is being totally reliant on somebody else and not having any of their options. Once you put all your eggs in that basket, right?
Yeah, then you're kind of...
You probably want to have some options.
Right. Yep.
And be careful not to dive into the deep end too soon.
Right. Take it slow.
Until you know where you're standing with these folks and whether or not they can deliver.
Explore the shallows before you go in the deep end.
Yeah, and the last con, we talked about it before, but is bias. A lot of times an advertising agency can be biased one way or the other. And you just have to find out, where have they worked before? Have they worked with other people in your industry? And reviews. And what are other people saying about it?
Yeah.
So, in general, I guess in summary, advertising agencies provide an important function for a lot of business owners. And there are a lot of successful advertising agencies all over. And I can think of 3 or 4 of them right off the top of my head. I have the utmost respect for what they do. And in some respects, they've got capabilities that are beyond my scope. And in that regard, that's when an advertising agency can be brought in. However, as a business owner, you have to, again, weigh your pros and cons as it relates to, do I want to bring in a marketing director from outside and hire him and have him be full-time on the staff? Do I want a part-time marketing director, like I do for a couple clients, where you're kind of a pseudo-employee? Do I want to hire a marketing consultant who's just going to give me direction and advice and help me get the right resources that I need to execute the game plan? Or do you want to do it yourself? Which sometimes, if you've got the right stuff and you have the right time and you're committed to doing it, I know a lot of business owners that take a lot of pride in doing their own advertising, and they've got enough resources inside their operation so that they can be very successful without outsourcing. But with this, hopefully today you've gotten a little bit more of a broader perspective about the difference advertising agency can bring versus potential for marketing director full-time versus hiring an outsourced marketing firm like the Business Source. And if you need help looking at your options, we'd be happy to help you make that decision.
Yeah, please feel free to reach out.
Even if it doesn't involve us. Our goal is to make sure you get what you need, and in the long run, we'll get what we need.
Yeah.
Flow of the universe.
Yeah, and I'd say, going back to what you said about options, like there's stuff that you know, and there's stuff that you know you don't know, and then there's stuff that you don't know that you don't know. And that's why I bring in just having a conversation. Feel free to reach out to me, reach out to John. We'd love to have a conversation with you if you're in that area of stuff you know you don't know, or stuff you know you don't know you don't know.
maybe you're in a decision-making process and you're not sure about which direction to go.
That's a better way to say it. This is why you're here.
Yeah, thanks for being with us today. Jared Whitman from Whitman Media and John Russell from the Business Source. We'll see you next time.